What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Protocol Pegasus here, bringing back to you guys with another video in Remnant from the Ashes, covering my survivalist scavenger build. So without further ado, let's get into this. If I open up my character sheet here, for the sidearm I am utilizing, it is the submachine gun. Reason being for that is because I love the fact that it has close range burst as well as mid range burst. From there, I am attaching the weapon mod called Seed Caller. This will summon 2 Rude Howls that will run around, attack whatever happens to be within melee range. From there, I'm using the primary weapon called Assault Rifle. Reason being for this is because I personally feel as though it's one of the best weapons in the game, and it scales very, very nicely. The weapon mod I have attached to it is called Beckon. Basically, I summon 2 skulls that float around, and they do range attack damage. From there, I'm using the Voice of the Tempest as my melee weapon. Voice of the Tempest will allow me to use the Overload proc, which will apply multiple shock damage to the target, and then pretty much explode on impact, which is very, very nice. From there, I'm also using the Labyrinth helmet for my armor piece. I'm using 1-piece Labyrinth set, which will increase my damage by 15%, and will also increase total weapon mod damage, refunds by 10% of mod power on use. Basically, it lets me conserve my mod energy output, which is very, very nice, so I can keep my summons up a lot more. From there, I'm using the Survivor Tunic and the Survivor Leggings as my chest and legging sets. This will increase the chance I go about obtaining scrap by 20%. And then I'm using Scavenger Bubble, I believe. This will give me increased amount of scrap gains by 50%. I'm using Soul Link, which will then in turn capitalize on healing efficiency. So every time my summons are out and they're dealing damage, I get health back. And then I'm using Gift of the Iskall. That will allow me to regenerate my mod power over time without me being in combat, which will keep these guys up at all times, which is very, very nice. From there, we're going to dive a little bit into my traits. Now, one of the main traits I do feel that makes or break this build is Scavenger. If you do not have Scavenger, then from there, you're not capitalizing the full potential of what this build happens to offer. This will boost your scrap gain by 35%, which is pretty much the bread and butter of this build. From there, the other ones you can go about utilizing are as followed. You can also use Spirit for mod power generation. You can use this guy for healing efficiency. You can also use Invoker for summon damage. Basically what that will do is that will amplify the damage output of your summons, keep your summons up at all times, and also amplify the healing potential of what you receive from the damage your summons are doing. So with that being said, that's all to keep in mind. When it comes to traits, I personally feel as though that you really want to capitalize on all traits within the course of the game, because there is no level cap within the course of the game, so you can get as many traits as you like. This will be able to not only synergize really well with any build set you happen to be doing, but from there it will just make you a lot more adaptable to any given situation. So with all that in mind, we're going to jump here to some gameplay footage. I'm going to show you guys exactly how this build ends up working out in your favor and what you can do with this build. So give me one moment and we'll jump right into that. Alright, and we are back here getting right into the thick of things here with this build. We are on Koros, and we are on normal level difficulty. Reason being we are on normal level difficulty is due to the fact that you get the same amount of scrap game on normal as you do on nightmare mode. So there is no rhyme or reason to play on nightmare mode if you are just running around and farming for scrap. So with that being said, we're going to play on the low level difficulty, breeze past these guys, and then from there we'll be able to capitalize on our scrap gain. Another reason we are playing on Koros is because of the fact that Koros actually has the most loot boxes within the course of the game. And by loot boxes, I mean regular boxes you can go about breaking, which will give you the ability to obtain more and more scrap. So from there, you can capitalize on your scrap gain by going to Koros and being able to farm up scrap accordingly. Another cool aspect of this build is the fact that this build utilizes summons, which means you can use the summons to be able to distract your enemies, get them killed, and then from there you can also capitalize on the fact that you can run around and just loot stuff, which is pretty much the bread and butter of the build. What's also nice is too is that the build is very, very mobile. So from there you're a lightweight, fast frame that can pretty much run around and do whatever you need to go about doing, while your summons just mess around anything in the course of the area, and you don't have to worry about it. Oh. Like so. Another really nice factor with this build too is that you really don't have to worry about messing around too heavily with a lot of things that happen to come across your way, because even if you do build up a large group of enemies, you just keep running around and your summons will kill stuff, and then from there that will regenerate your mod power, And it will also allow you to get healing back too while doing damage, and then whatever they kill you can just walk around and loot. So I don't really bother with enemies too much because there's no rhyme or reason to go about doing so. So I don't really worry about them overall. One of the factors too going into this, while I'm making my way to this dungeon here, is I will show you how much scrap we have as of right now. So we have 45,000 scrap, and then we're going to go into this area here for this dungeon. I will show you how much scrap you can actually capitalize from the beginning of the dungeon all the way to the end of the dungeon. Is this... Okay, good. Alright, so I'm going to hit this real quick so that way I go about regenerating all my ammo as well as my health, and then from there we're going to go about getting started. Now, once again, I'm going to open up my inventory here, and we have 45,000 in scrap. So I'm going to run through this real quick, and I'm going to show you exactly how much scrap we actually obtained from completing this all the way through. One thing to note too is that you don't actually have to shoot down a lot of the barrels or melee them or whatever the case may be. I'm just doing it because it is the fastest way to go about clearing out a lot of these barrels or boxes, whatever the case you may run into. It does utilize a lot of ammunition though, so you do have to be cautious of that. If you want to save more ammunition from playing at a harder level difficulty, or let's say that you just don't feel as though you want to make a lot of noise in your surrounding area, you can just roll into them. That will be able to break all the boxes that happen to be in front of you, like so. And from there, you don't end up using any of your ammunition, you end up dodging any attacks that get thrown at you, and you also break everything within proximity, which is really nice. So now that I have some ads that are trickling downward, I'm going to go ahead and do some of my summons here, and then I'm just going to run around and loot some stuff. If I stop getting stunned by this weird car alarm. There we go. Now, you can choose to kill a lot of the enemies if you want to go about doing so. You don't really have to. It's just really a personal preference. I only kill them if there's nothing really else to loot nearby. If there's tons of stuff to loot and whatnot, I just let the ads take care of it. The ads do enough damage at this point where I really don't have to worry about dealing with anything at the moment, especially at this level of difficulty. Now, if you're playing on Nightmare mode or anything like that, then you would probably want to focus on the ads and prioritize those more than the loot, but in this difficulty, it really doesn't matter. Another thing to note with this build too is that I stack a lot of adrenaline. The reason I do this is so that I can just literally be as fast and efficient as possible when going through this. So I'm going to keep moving my way through this here. Breaking these little egg sacs, getting even more and more loot. And because the necklace I am wearing, combined with my armor, I'm getting so much more scrap than I would normally get. Give me that. Thank you. And now I'm going to keep running through the majority of this. Gonna make some noise, gonna attract some attention so that way I can get these ads out of the way early on, because I have full stacks on summons, and while they're dealing with that, I'm gonna loot. One other cool aspect of Koros is that if you have the DLC with Koros, is that the new dungeons that end up formulating with the DLC, not the newest one, the one prior, the swamp. From there, this will give you the ability to get bigger dungeons, which will also have more ads in it, which will allow you to just get a lot more scrap than normal, which is really nice. But keep in mind, this does raise the difficulty level a little bit, which means that if you are not as geared up as what you would like to be coming across a lot of these enemies, then from there you can definitely have a difficult time. So you want to be very cautious when approaching this at a lower level character. But it is still a very, very nice area to loot. Even if you are a lower level character approaching this, then from there, with this build set, you can run around, loot everything, and even if you die a few times, it doesn't matter. You don't lose any of the scrap that you end up getting. So from there, it just resets you back to the beginning. But then you could just farm up a lot of the enemies and then get scrap from that as well, because their scrap rate will also be higher than the standard, meaning that they'll just drop a lot more stuff for you, which is great. And I know you guys are probably curious of how much scrap I am making as of right now going into this. I'm I'm going to open up at the very end so that way you guys can see how much scrap we have gained. Once again, we were at 45,862, somewhere around there. So I'm not going to show you guys until the very, very end so that way you get a general idea. What's also nice about this particular dungeon is that this dungeon I don't believe has a boss fight at the end of it. It's just one of those dungeons that have a cave at the end that gets you extra loot if you want it. Meaning that the dungeon's going to be a little bit bigger and focus heavily on ads, which also implies that I can literally get more kills, which more kills means more scrap, which is great. So I'm going to keep maneuvering through here. And you can see that my health too doesn't really go down whatsoever just because of the fact that I have the summons active, and every time they're killing stuff, they just heal me, which is great. Another thing to note too is if you're going to run around and just shoot a lot of these barrels or boxes or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure you have ammo crates on you. Even if you're playing on normal, having ammo crates just makes it a lot more convenient for you. As well as having adrenaline that you can continuously proc also makes it a lot less time consuming for you. So it just makes everything more convenient. I'm going to keep maneuvering through this dungeon here, opening up a chest as I go about seeing. And then we're going to keep grabbing all this loot and making sure I'm hitting these hidden doors that I go about seeing here too, because they can also have more chests. And they can have trinkets, which I've already gotten before, which also get me a nice bundle of scrap too, which is very, very nice. Because if you pick up trinkets, like amulets or rings that you've already had, it's just going to give you more scrap. It usually gives you around like 590 scrap or something like that. Now, keep in mind there are some drawbacks to this build, of course. One of the drawbacks being is that you can't dodge while using your summons, so you want to make sure that if anyone's on top of you, you want to keep sprinting in an opposite direction and utilize your summons, as opposed to continuously try to dodge, because it won't work. Another thing is that a lot of the damage output from this build does, a lot of damage output and your survivability, comes from your summons. So you want to make sure you're constantly having those up and you're constantly utilizing those. Now, another downfall to this build too is that against bosses, this build probably won't be great unless you're like seriously overpowered for normal mode. Then from there you can easily take on this without a problem. But there are better builds you can utilize against bosses and stuff like that. The primary aspect of this build is the ability to obtain a numerous amount of scrap without you having to worry about doing anything else. So that is really the main focus when it comes to this build. If you focus on just anything else primarily, like doing damage or, you know, ultimate survivability or whatever the case may be, this build will lack in some aspects. But overall, when it comes to hunting for loot, this build's fantastic. Now, you can utilize this build in nightmare mode. It is definitely a lot harder to do so, and it's a lot slower. But I can see some of the reasons that you might want to go about doing that. If you want to farm up for luminite crystals, if you're farming for the glowing crystals, those guys you might want to go about playing on a higher level difficulty, so that way you can obtain those a little bit easier, and from there you won't have to worry about whether or not you're going to get lucky to get enough. Oh. I'll drop down a little bit here. But overall, I'm just farming for scrap, and then from there, even if I get enough scrap and I don't get really any minerals or materials, I can just go back to the area that I was originally in, and then from there, I can easily, I'm forgetting the name, I'm blanking out. But basically, the area where you go about getting into the big crystal, the ward. If you go back to the ward, you can just purchase a lot of the minerals and stuff like that from the actual vendor itself, but not worry about it too much. So, something to note. So, even if I'm just obtaining scrap and I'm looking to go about upgrading armor or weapons, whatever the case may be, it's still fine. I'll just purchase a lot of the minerals and stuff like that from the ward and be perfectly fine with it. Oh. And if you're wondering why my character looks a little bit different than the standard default armor set, is because I am wearing the skin. The skin is obtainable from the first DLC that was launched on Remnant from the Ashes. But if you want me to go a little bit more in depth and detail on how to go about getting skins, best way to farm for those resources needed to go about getting those, then let me know. I'll be happy to make a video on that, so just post that down below in the comment section if that's something you would like to go about seeing. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep looting. Gonna keep looting. Gonna deal with these car alarms. Never mind. I'm not gonna deal with the car alarms. I'm just gonna have them deal with the car alarms. And there we go. Hey, the rusted amulet. Alright. I'm gonna keep mowing. Oh, and I'm out of ammo, so I'm gonna pop an ammo crate here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and keep grabbing everything here. Now, one cool aspect with this build is the fact that I'm not using really a primary set that will regenerate my mod power output, but because of my traits as well as the ring that I'm using, the ring of Iskall, that will regenerate my mod output by a considerable amount. So you can clearly see that I'm continuously getting my summons back over and over again. So I don't really have to worry about whether or not I should be spamming these or not. I can just keep them up all the time and not really worry about it too much. Now, if you're looking at this for the first time too, you probably figure that this can make out into a really nice Necromancer build. Surprisingly, there is a better Necromancer build, and if you guys want to check it out, be sure to check out my channel for a Necromancer build that is actually not only capable of being one of the best builds in the game, but it is also one of the highest damage dealing builds you can have on Nightmare mode, in my overall opinion. So yeah, be sure to check that out. That's posted on my channel if you wanted to take a look into that. There are two different build sets. I have one for normal mode, and then I also have one for a Nightmare mode gameplay. So yeah, be sure to check that out. But I'm gonna go ahead and keep slaying these down. Alright, before I hit that, I'm just gonna go ahead and make my way through this here. Oh. Go ahead and slay that guy. There we go. Oh, I think there was another barrel. Sweet. There we go. I'm gonna proc my summons here. I'm gonna make sure I get rid of him. There we go. Alright. So I'm gonna break this down. I'm gonna get this. So I'm not going to open any of these for the sake of the build. I want to show you guys how you can capitalize on it without this particular dungeon. But as you can see, if I open up my inventory, I have 55,000. So I have made 10,000 scrap in the matter of a few minutes. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the build, guys. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, be sure to post them down below in the comment section. From there, if you guys want to see any of the future epic Remnant content I happen to go about doing, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when I release this epic content. With that being said, guys, I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope to see you real soon. Later.